New numbers show homicides and robberies are down significantly in Denver and Aurora, continuing a years-long trend. Now, it might not seem that way, in part because of the focus on crime that dominates local news, including on this station. But we interrupt that briefly for our Mark Salinger to provide some context as key categories of crime in our area continue to fall.
Scenes like this make the news nearly every day. But the context behind the crime tape and the flashing lights is harder to come by. New numbers compiled by the Major Cities Chiefs Association show the number of homicides and most violent crimes are down in both Denver and Aurora. In Denver, homicides are down 58% through the first 3 months of the year compared to the same time in 2024. 10 so far this year, 24 last year. It's a similar story in Aurora. Homicides are down from 11 to 7. A 36% drop through the first quarter of the year. Yet the reality doesn't always match the perception.
Homicides are down over 40%. Non-fatal shootings are down over the last couple of years, double digits. But you might not necessarily feel safe as you're living in Denver.
Last month, Denver Police Chief Ron Thomas stood on the 16th Street Mall and announced the creation of a new downtown police force. It came after 4 people were stabbed there. Even he acknowledges people may not feel comfortable coming to the area.
We recognize that we need to do a better job making sure that perception matches reality.
It's a similar challenge that Aurora has faced.
I will rescue Aurora and every town that has been invaded and conquered.
Robberies and aggravated assaults are also down in Aurora, even though a narrative picked up by the president aims to instill a fear that crime skyrocketed when Venezuelan migrants started arriving. Aurora PD Chief Todd Chamberlain told city council members last week crime continues to fall.
The city of Aurora and Aurora PD are actually in a really good spot right now. Our crime numbers are down 22.8% overall.
So these high-profile crime events or speeches alluding to high crime rates get a lot of coverage and traction, but they don't always tell the full story. Police continue to acknowledge that increasing the perception of safety with more officers, more patrols, very important in making people feel safe, even if the actual crime numbers are already dropping, Kyle.
And when we zoom way out for even more perspective, right, you had crimes go up during the pandemic. So if we string together years of declines, they're declining from a peak.
Yeah, so what that report says is that most major American cities are seeing similar trends, although Denver and Aurora are actually seeing steeper trends of crime declining. But most major American cities are seeing crime going down when you look at things like homicides and aggravated assaults, things like that. Spiked during the pandemic, coming down now.
All right. Well, we appreciate the perspective and return everyone to their previously scheduled crime coverage. Mark, thank you. The first school district in Colorado, as far as we can tell, banning trans athletes, is now preemptively suing to protect its trans athlete ban, which the district declined to tell us how it plans to enforce. School District 49 in the Springs just passed that ban last week. District is already suing to prevent the state Civil Rights Commission from intervening. The district says that they are put in a quote-unquote untenable position, forced to choose between complying with Colorado's anti-discrimination laws or President Trump's executive order banning trans athletes from female sports. The suit also claims the state's policies protecting trans athletes violate the civil rights of other athletes in the district and put D49 at the risk of losing federal funding. The district is asking a judge to prevent the state from taking any action against the district over their new policy, although it's still not clear how the district plans to investigate each student's biological gender. Has a pro sports team owner ever been pressured to sell a team? Asking for a city. The city that is witnessing the Colorado Rockies' historically horrible 7-33 start. Only one team in baseball history has ever been worse at this point. Rockies are on their way to their 7th straight losing season. It would be their 13th losing season in the last 15. Shake-up over the weekend as Rockies owner Dick Monfort just fired manager Bud Black. Marshall Zellinger joins us now from Coors Field, where, Marshall, the Rockies are guaranteed not to lose tonight.
That's a big guarantee, Kyle. Let's consult the schedule here. The white box means they're on the road in Texas, so you're correct. They are not going to lose here at Coors Field tonight. Complain about ownership all you want, but what I learned today is unless owner Dick Monfort or other Major League Baseball owners start losing money, you're screaming into the void. It is blocks from the Denver Mint, but a lot of money is made at 20th and Blake.
The reality of selling a franchise comes down to the bottom line and money. And with Coors Field, it's a destination vacation.
A destination Troy Rank visited for years as the Rockies beat reporter for the Denver Post. He's now a sports columnist and vocal critic of Rockies ownership.
I mean, anytime I've spent with Dick Montfort, I mean, he's a guy you have lunch with, talk shop with. He is a proven businessman. He's just not a baseball man.
Hard to argue about the owner of a team 1/3 of the way to 100 losses for the third straight year.
Ultimately, it always comes down to money.
There's that word again, money. Nikki Javala, formerly of the Denver Post, covers the Washington Commanders for the Washington Post, a team that former owner Dan Snyder was forced to rebrand.
First to change the name, that was pressure from sponsors who, wrote letters saying, we're severing our deals unless you change the name.
And then a team Snyder was forced to sell, but not because of anything the fans had to say.
I think the number of federal and NFL-led investigations weighed on the league as a whole.
Investigations about withholding revenue from other NFL teams and creating a toxic workplace led to the sale, not fan apathy. Because controversies with a team in the nation's capital is not good for generating capital.
They know the value there, and it was costing other team owners.
But I do think if you want to grab Dick Montfort's attention, it is through attendance.
As Rank said, Coors Field is a destination vacation. Although, look ahead to Memorial Day weekend when the New York Yankees are in town. The Blue Dots are unsold tickets for the Friday night game, the Saturday day game, and the Sunday day game. Metro area taxpayers built this place, and it's starting to look like they might not come.
So if you go Yankee series and it's 25,000 times 3 instead of 48, that's a huge hit, and you would hope it would cause an epiphany.
Usually, being the worst team in sports means you'll get a high draft pick and then you'll start getting star players and you'll start being good again. Here's the thing. Later this summer, the Rockies will pick 4th in the Major League Baseball draft. Last year, they picked 3rd. And because of anti-tanking rules in Major League Baseball, even if the Rockies finish with the worst record, let alone the worst record ever in baseball history, the highest they'll be able to pick is 10th. As Rank told me that statistic, he said, the team can't even fail right.
No, I've watched the Rockies. They're not tanking. They're just terrible.
So this anti-tanking rule deals with revenue sharing and revenue splitting, and because I believe it's because the Rockies get more revenue from other teams, you just can't sit on it and not be good. I have to look more into it, but you can only have 2 years of top 6 picks, and the Rockies have that. And now they're flirting with the worst ever, and they're going to be 10th at best. That's just crazy.
Yeah, there needs to be some kind of a run-sharing agreement in Major League Baseball. That's what the Rockies need. Marshall Zellinger, thank you. House Republicans have finally released their billion-dollar cost savings plan to pay for President Donald Trump's tax cuts. And lo and behold, after saying that Medicaid was safe, the plan calls for billions of dollars in Medicaid cuts. Now, the politics of this in Colorado are interesting because the 2 congressional districts that have the largest share of Coloradans on Medicaid are represented by the 2 most vulnerable Republicans in Colorado's congressional delegation. According to preliminary plans released this weekend, a lot of those cuts are going to come from Medicaid in terms of the $880 billion that is coming from one committee in particular. This could mean new work requirements, education service requirements for adults without dependence or disability, some new out-of-pocket costs for Medicaid recipients who live above the federal poverty line. House Republicans are also suggesting reducing federal reimbursements to states that allow people living in the U.S. without authorization to sign up for Medicaid. Colorado is one of those states that allows children and pregnant women to sign up for Medicaid coverage no matter their immigration status. That particular program has been a target of Republican Congressman Gabe Evans. Evans sits on the House Energy and Commerce Committee, so he's going to have a direct impact on deciding any cuts to Medicaid.
And unfortunately, we've seen where Colorado's priorities lies. They are spending tens of millions of dollars funding healthcare for illegal immigrants instead of cutting fraud, waste, and abuse. I am committed to making sure that we are good stewards of taxpayer money.
Evans's district has one of the highest proportions of Medicaid recipients in the state. Nearly 25% of his district relies on Medicaid. That's second only to Congressman Jeff Hurd's district on the Western Slope, where 30% of Coloradans are on Medicaid. Hurd has been on the other side of this. He's urged Republican leadership to preserve Medicaid, though Hurd did tell us earlier this year that work requirements would not be out of the question for him.
I think a work requirement is something that makes sense. Obviously, we would want to account for individual circumstances for those that are studying in school, but a work requirement is something that makes sense.
It's not just Medicaid. Republicans are also considering changes to the Affordable Care Act and the repeal of Biden-era green energy funding to pay for tax cuts. You did a real solid for Colorado's farmers and ranchers recently. Your donations are going to restart AgWell. That's a nonprofit mental health program that aims to prevent suicide in Colorado's rural communities. A recent loss of federal funding had that program paused. The future was uncertain. Then you raised more than $35,000 last week, enough for AgWell to resume their gatherings, their get-togethers, their programs where farmers and ranchers can open up about the stress of that often isolating profession, and they can get mental health help when the pressure becomes too much. We're just a couple weeks away from the 5th anniversary of your Word of Thanks weekly micro-giving campaigns, and we are real close to $15 million you've raised for nonprofits across our state. You have created a powerful force for good in our communities. Email your ideas for future micro-giving campaigns to next@9news.com or text NEXT 303-871-1491. President Trump wants to accept a very pricey gift, a luxury plane, for him. Now, Colorado's elected officials, they can take gifts too, just not plane-sized.
Everything is done in the walls of the school, so parents don't have to take their kids out of school to go get eye care.
Some kids in Colorado can go years without getting their eyes checked. A new partnership fills that gap in care. Next. Denver's plan to build a new women's soccer stadium could pass its first test in City Council tonight. They're voting on the initial agreement to purchase the land where the future stadium would stand. Back in March, an ownership group for a new National Women's Soccer League team announced plans to spend up to $200 million for a 14,000-seat stadium in Denver. They want to put it on a vacant 14-acre site near I-25 and Broadway in the Baker neighborhood. Under this deal, the city would spend up to $70 million, $50 million for the land and the infrastructure improvements, $20 million for trails, parks, a bridge, and other community improvements around the stadium. Some on City Council have expressed concerns about the city's budget and whether the potential economic benefits of this stadium are really going to be worth that cost.
An economist that I spoke to said that one way to think of paying for a stadium is it's like paying for a party. You pay for it for the intangibles, for the fun of it, because it's something that people want to do, but not because it's going to generate any permanent economic benefit.
There's particular hesitation on City Council about spending that much money on a sports stadium, given the economic uncertainty in part due to President Trump's trade war against the world. Mayor Johnston says City Council approval tonight would just be a soft yes, says City Council could still kill the deal later this year. President Trump's insistence today that there's nothing wrong with him accepting the gift of a $400 million luxury jet from the Qatari royal family got us thinking about Colorado's gift limits for public officials. Now, somebody out there saying, oh, that's not fair. Qatar's not about to give a $400 million plane to the governor of Colorado, and I will give you that. So let's look at Colorado's gift limit through a more realistic lens. Suppose the state of Wyoming wanted to give Governor Jared Polis this 2014 Chevrolet Captiva Sport that I found for sale on Auto Trader in Cheyenne. They want $350 for this thing. It is the cheapest used car on the site in all of Wyoming. It's got that pretty big chunk of paint missing on the hood, 132,000 miles. Also, according to the listing, it does not run and needs an engine. But at $350, it is still way over Colorado's gift limit for public officials, which is currently $75 per year. So the state of Wyoming cannot gift that Chevrolet Captiva Sport to Colorado's governor. And if President Trump was an elected official in Colorado, that luxury jet from Qatar would be over the gift limit by $399,999,925.
A beautiful spring day with temperatures above average in the mid-80s. That's saying something considering where we were a week ago today. Cloudy, cool with periods of heavy rain. Average highs are in the mid-60s, but we're headed for 90. Some areas could see 90 tomorrow, and that would certainly be a record. Denver's high at 85 today, 89 in Lamar, 88 in Sterling, and 87 in Grand Junction. Watching the wind increasing out of the southwest. Elevated fire danger, something that we'll be talking about as this warm, dry weather pattern lasts the week. week. The wind advisory out across the western slope for gusty southwest winds, which are taking all the water out of the soil. We're in between storm systems, one in the northwest, one in the southwest, and one near Memphis that's bringing some beneficial rain to drought-ravaged Florida. But with high pressure centered over us, we've just got a couple of hit-and-miss little showers that show up briefly on the radar and then out they go. And we'll see this again tomorrow with a few more afternoon clouds moving into the picture. The temperature trend, though, comfortable. We're dropping out of the 80s into the 60s by midnight, and the 7-day forecast includes above average temperatures heading into the weekend, and then a return of afternoon showers and storms with cooler highs in the 60s a week from today.
Students who need glasses don't even have to leave school to get them, thanks to a new partnership. And hey, thanks to another partnership, you can watch Next streaming each night at 6 p.m. on 9 News Plus. It's not a partnership, it's the same company, right? 9 News Plus, same thing. Anyway, whatever. Also, we're a podcast. You can find us where you get podcasts. I first realized that I needed glasses in second grade. School assembly, way in the back. My class was cheering for our friends on stage, and I was like, y'all can see who is up there? For some students in Jeffco schools, the solution for that imperfect vision came right to them today. Our Byron Reed was there.
Success in the classroom takes vision.
3/5 plus 4/15.
But some students might need a little help.
Because I couldn't see the answers and the questions.
For 5th grader Litzy Altamirano, it's a problem she's focused on fixing.
I've got like 2 pairs of glasses, but my sister broke them.
Litzy is one of 50 students at Stevens Elementary School in Wheat Ridge receiving free eyeglasses.
Because I needed the glasses, and then my mom couldn't get me an appointment for my other glasses.
Have you worn glasses before?
Jeffco Schools partnered with I Love Care to make sure no students struggle in the classroom through their No Vision Left Behind program.
We're fitting the glasses to the kid's face and really just forming them behind the ears.
Keegan Meyer is the president of the optometry group bringing eye care to underserved students in Title I schools. This year, they've distributed more than 13,000 pairs of eyeglasses statewide.
A lot of these parents, some of them don't have transportation. They're within these realms between Medicaid and making too much for Medicaid but not enough to really get by.
The group performs comprehensive eye exams for students.
Okay, you're all set. All right.
And provides glasses to those who need them at no cost.
And they get 3 pairs of glasses. They get their first initial pair. If they break those, they go to the nurse. Another pair is ordered and brought right back to the school.
Oh my goodness!
It's the district's effort to improve student grades.
Well, we believe so strongly at Jeffco that we just want to build these community partnerships because it really wraps around the whole child. And we give them the resources that they need so they can be in class and learn.
I'm going to make them a little tighter behind your ears. Okay?
For Litzy and her classmates, their vision has improved.
Okay. Have a great summer. You're welcome.
So now they can see their accomplishments crystal clear.
If you can't see, you can't learn. And so this whole program was created to bridge that gap.
For Next,
good and thankful.
I'm Byron Reed.
Smart looking kids in those glasses. Hey, Denver City Council just gave the soft okay to the soccer stadium. And look, here's Maryland brace free for the first time in a long time. Very gentle fist bump. Good stuff. Feedback next. Feedback tonight from Steve and Parker, who writes, at least Kyle showed his support for the Rockies with the blazer tonight, or that's his Bud Black morning coat. Steve says, please tell us which it is. Steve, I'll just say, Bud Black seems like a really good man, right? He seems like a very good guy who did the best with what he had. That's probably all I should say about that. Joanne writes on Twitter, the Rockies suck, Kyle Clark sucks. Match made in heaven. Go easy, Joanne. The Rockies and I can't help it. And a text that says, your eyes are especially blue this evening with the blue shirt. My husband dared me to text. He now owes you dinner. I read it.